Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Indie Hangout podcast. I am Pneumatics. You may know me over on YouTube, or you may also catch me over on Twitch if you had an extra X at the end. I am joined by my wonderful co-hosts, Kronos and Maz. What's up, guys?
How's it going, everybody? Kronos here. You can find me on YouTube and Twitch at OSOK Kronos.
What's going on, guys? Maz from MazTech Gaming. MazTech Gaming over on YouTube and MazTech_gaming on Twitch. Guys, you know, this is an exciting day. Do you guys want to know why?
Why? Why is it, Maz?
For us?
We got a special guest today. This guy I've known for a while. This guy knows his stuff. 3 different podcasts. YemmyTheFerret, Ferret64, and Film Freaks. I'm talking about YemmyTheFerret. Good friend of mine, very, very knowledgeable in the game space. Fantastic YouTuber and streamer. I mean, I call him the busiest man in content creation. And he's got so much going on. Yemmy, welcome to the podcast, bro. Thanks for joining us.
Well, hello. Thank you for inviting me. It's quite an honor.
I think the honor is really ours, man. Seriously, love having good conversations with you. Love having you on the podcasts. I've had you on other podcasts in the past. I've been on a couple of your podcasts. Really looking forward to tonight.
Yeah, me too. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, especially since having you on here, I think it's nice to have another voice in on what we're going to be talking about, which is the Steam Next Fest. Yeah. It's going on right now. We're getting into it, guys. All the demos, all the fun, all the devs. And I think it's really good. You know, it's funny going back to it, like with you, Yemmy. Me and you have kind of crossed paths because of Maz, but we've never really been able to get in on a conversation together. So I think this is even more exciting because of that. And then you are brand new to Kronos as well. So we get a bunch of ideas rolling today.
Yeah. I don't think I've really talked to y'all other than like maybe through Maz's Twitch chat or something like that. But it is very nice to meet you both. I've been listening to the Indie Hangout for when I can. I told Maz I have a backlog of podcasts that I listen to as well as a giant backlog of games. So like I try and listen to like all these different podcasts at the same time, but I do find time to sneak in the indie podcast. It's been fun to listen to. It's been fun.
Definitely appreciate that, man.
Yeah, glad to hear it.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've been doing this for quite a while. I have been listening to a few of your podcasts as of late, and really good stuff. Honestly, man, I really like it. So do you want to kind of discuss your background, how you got into content creation in first place, and how you're crazy enough to be doing 3 podcasts at the same time?
Yeah, of course. Appreciate you listening. It's always fun to talk to fellow podcasters, of course. But yeah, I mean, pretty much everything's like. I started back in the primal days of YouTube, just doing like random stuff with a Canon digital camera on a defunct YouTube channel that I used to have. And there was a point where I wanted to do gaming content because it had become more and more of a hobby for me as I was growing older and actually getting an income other than just McDonald's or whatever. So that's when I split off from that channel and I actually left that one behind and just started the YemmyTheFerret channel. It started more with like edited videos, but then I slowly snuck into the podcast place. And at one point I was running 4 podcasts at the same time, but now I have cut back. I'm running 3 right now. And it all started with the Ferret64 one, which is my bread and butter, I guess you would say. That's my video game podcast. And I have a bunch of friends do the movie one with me with Film Freaks, and then YemmyTheFerret was just like just kind of bullshitting around on that one, just kind of like funny topics, funny things going on. So I try to dip my toes into a couple of different podcast places while also streaming 4 times a week. So it's a busy schedule, but it's a fun hobby to have, like on top of gaming and stuff like that. It's just, I find it very relaxing to just kind of like talk and then edit a podcast or whatever. It's just been it's been fun.
Awesome.
Real quick, my question to you was, we all have an origin story on where our channel names started. Like, for instance, Aztec is partially my last name and, you know, technology, gaming, that kind of thing, right? So MazTech, kind of easy. And a lot of people are like, are you like part Aztec? And no, it has nothing to do with that. It's a fusion of my last name and technology, which is how I came to that. But my question to you, Yemmy, and honestly, I don't think that I ever asked you this. Where'd you come up with YemmyTheFerret?
Yeah, so that's like That's an interesting story because back in, I would say, middle school, I started writing stories for my friends, and Yemmy was a character in the stories that was a ferret. And for the longest time, like the only association that I had with that was in these old writings that I had. And I came up with the name Yemmy from episode of Lost, where the one guy's brother was named Yemmy, but it was spelled very differently. It was spelled Yemi or something like that. So not only did I misspell the name, but I also like completely changed the character. It's not even the same character. So that was kind of in the back of my mind for the longest time. And my last channel was way different. And I was like, well, I don't want to be that last channel. I don't want to be like, blah 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 2 or back or channel 2 or whatever. I don't want to become Smosh Games or Smosh where it's like Smosh Games, Smosh Spanish, Smosh whatever. So I decided to name it YemmyTheFerret just because that was one of my favorite characters to write in those stories back in the day. But 2, I just was like, I really enjoy ferrets. Ferret is my spirit animal, as you would say.
Love it.
I guess it just stuck. And there were several other names I could have been, but I'm glad that I landed on YemmyTheFerret because I think it does match me quite well nowadays.
Oh, absolutely. It's got the thing I love about that is it's got some sentimental relevance to you on that, that's really cool. A little bit of nostalgia, a little reminder of the past every time you think of where your name came from. That's awesome.
Love that. That's awesome. Because my channel name actually comes from a similar area of where I was younger. I was writing, and I'd write these crazy stories, and I had notebook upon notebook of like I was going to be an author and all this. And I had plenty of character names. And one of my old character names that I had for a main character was Senchi. And then I had Numata, and I'm like, which one am I going to go with? And I'm like, I like Numata, but I think I need to change it. And I went with Pneumatics. But now looking back on it, it's funny because if people didn't know, I actually my main job is I work in collision for cars. And a lot of people think I picked the name Pneumatics because it's not spelt the same way, but pneumatics has air pressure for pneumatic tools. It's so now I'm like, why did I pick that name? But it's fine. Only certain people that know me in the collision area kind of guess that, but definitely wrong.
I think we're alternate reality versions of each other because I also was like, I was in high school. I'm going to be a writer. I also had notebooks on notebooks of old writings in my basement right now. Like the place where we diverged is you work on cars, I work on copy machines. So a little bit different.
There you go.
Man, that's crazy.
Kronos, we got to ask you the origin of your channel name.
Get it all out there.
Yeah, we got to complete the circle.
Man, so from the Halo 3, Halo 2 days, we used to play in the MLG stuff, and we always played the tournaments where you got to play with the professional teams back then, and we was actually beating some of them. So what came to be was like we got together and made a team, and we were like, what we gonna call ourselves? Because I was like team captain. And I was like, well, we always use snipers. So it's like one shot, one kill. That's where the OSOC comes from. And then I was like, well, the God Killers are the Titans. And I'm like, I'll just be Kronos because I'm the leader of the Titans. And that's how it came to be. It's simple, but effective.
Hell yeah, dude.
Well, I think the consensus is in that I definitely have the most boring origin story for my channel name by a damn sight.
Yeah, but if you think about it, yours is the most personal because it's got your name in it.
I appreciate that, man, but it's just...
Well, I'm just saying, like, ours are alternate reality stuff. Like, that's our alter ego type thing. Yours is just like, hey, this is me.
Fair. Love y'all's stories on how you came up with it. I don't even remember how I came up with mine. I think it was just like, okay, this is easy.
Right. No, that's awesome.
I mean, imagine if we all picked our first usernames to be our channel names, because
oh god, like the random generated Xbox names or something.
Because my original name on PS3 was I was a part of a group of friends, and we were like, oh, we're the pro gamers, right? Pretty cringe nowadays. But my name would have been _X, capital P, so pro. Yeah, so pro _ fuzz, because that's what my nickname was in high school. Like,
Nice.
How different would my life have been if I picked that name for my YouTube channel? I feel like I would have been a completely different person.
But yeah.
I don't think I'll tell y'all my first one. Not on here anyway.
God.
Gonna
But I
save
would
that
have
for
been in a
after.
different industry. Let's just put it that way. We'll just say industry.
What?
It probably would have been the adult industry.
Oh my god, I could see that now. Like I'm just picturing like Xbox 360 day gamer tags that you used to see. Like so, I can only imagine what you
Oh yeah,
had back
it
then.
was there. It was there. Y'all can DM me on that. I'll tell you.
Nice, cool. All right, so obviously we already stated main topics. We're gonna get into Steam Next Fest excitement. There's a lot of buzz around it right now. We're right in the middle of it, right? The indie devs and content creators alike are excited for it all. We have a lot of new releases coming up on the Switch 2 as well. But before we dive into all that, I think we should remind our listeners of the game of the month. So if you guys didn't catch it last recording, we stated that we're going through with our game of the month for June. So at the very beginning of June, we have been getting into Deliver at All Costs. That is our game that we're playing. And like I said, as soon as the end of the month comes, we're going to do a little deep dive into that and review the game together on one of the final episodes at the end of the month and kind of go over our thoughts and how we felt about the game and everything like that. I know Maz has already gotten into it. I have downloaded it and played. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't played it yet, but I'm going to. Don't worry, I will not fail you. I'm going to play it because
Well, your
I need
defense,
to.
we're only halfway through the month, so you got
Yeah,
time.
yeah, it's fine. It's there at least. No, I'm really excited to play it because ever since I saw you stream it, I'm like, man, that looks like a fun, just crazy game to get into. So
It's
that'll be good.
absolute chaos. And I will share that a bird was pooping on a statue that I was hauling while playing the game. I have gotten a little bit deeper into it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think that, well, our listeners can definitely jump in on this, discuss it with us. If you already have the game downloaded and you've been playing it, let us know in the Discord. Let's get a conversation going so that we can pile it all up at the end of the month. Other than that, how about we get into what we've been playing lately? Let's start with you, Maz. What you been playing?
I've been playing a lot of different things. Moving my space from AAA games and primarily Bethesda games, I've really been focusing more on indie games as we have decided to make this Indie Hangout podcast. I think the three of us had really made the goal at the beginning to be an authority, as I like to put it, an authority in our industry, like being knowledgeable and understanding as much as possible about everything that we're doing. So I've been really focusing on that. And so with my channels, especially like on Twitch and YouTube, I'm streaming two games. One's a longer game, one's a shorter game. So currently streaming No Man's Sky as my longer indie game, and The Precinct, which I started out with, the day it released. So that's my shorter game. And then on Wednesdays and Fridays, I'm streaming a brand new game and recording on Twitch. I call it the indie game showcase, and it is talking to developers through social media and playing their demos or playing the beta or the alpha. Or their unreleased game in which they gave me the code and whatnot. It's something that is not currently out, and trying to help these smaller indie developers get found. And so as I'm building up that audience, I've been playing many, many games. Most notably recently is Ruffian the Riverside, which is actually when that releases on June 26th, which is only 2 weeks from now. That will be my short game that replaces The Precinct. So The Precinct will be done on my channel before then. But I fell in love with it instantly. I also did showcases on Car Dealer Simulator, The Precinct, Deliver at All Costs, which is how I found that in the first place, which we kind of talked about that. And we all decided, hey, let's do this for our game of the month. That, and it was free on Epic. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer. And then recently, Relic Abyss, which is a newer indie developer that has a bullet heaven roguelite RPG looter, kind of like all the genres we were talking about last week, all in one game. So it's long story short, I know too late, but lots of games, lots of indie games, and having fun every single second.
Nice, dude. I have been getting into a few games as well. So I got into a game called Artist Impact. That game, I did a little demo. I played the demo of it. That game comes out in August, and I'm super excited for it. I would love to play the full version because it's like a little teaser. I got a taste of it, and I want to continue forward with it. It's so cool to see these developers. It's a solo dev, named Mas. It's M-A-S. It's so close to your name, Mas. I'm just like, Mas. And it's phenomenal what this person's been able to do. Like it's hand drawn. Most of it's hand drawn. And you got these little comic snippets that come throughout the story. The levels are compact and small so that you don't get overwhelmed. Everything about it, and I think I stated this in a prior episode, that I feel like any dev that's coming through and puts out a game that's been hand drawn is just amazing. It's amazing because there's no way I could do that. I'm sticking to my pixel art, which is hard enough. I couldn't imagine drawing everything by hand and putting it in there and animating it and all that. That's nuts. So yeah, in short on that, I really love that game. I can't wait till it comes out in August 7th to be exact. As long as no delays or anything like that, which the person doesn't seem to have put anything forward that it would be delayed. So I've also gotten into Forge of the Fae. It's a little explorer, rich story. It's got RPG elements to it. That's another demo as well. That does not have a planned release date, just says to be announced. And then I got one more. Oh yeah, Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon. That's another one that I've gotten into. It reminds me like if Skyrim and Dark Souls had a baby and this popped out, and this was it's wishy-washy with indie when you throw out the name indie, because in my mind an indie would be maybe a max of 10 to 15 people, but this was created by 20 people and then it inflated to I think 50. So by the time it was fully released, so it started indie-ish and then ended AA-ish, and I've been really getting into this one. It's really cool, nice 3D game. A little off track for me because I told you guys I've been really into the 2D games, but this one's pretty interesting. I have seen some hiccups, as you might read in some of the reviews for it so far, that they were a bit ambitious, and then later on in the game, things might have issues. Maybe the dialogue doesn't go really well, or the voiceover doesn't go very well, whatever. I haven't run into any of that yet, but we will see. And even if I do, I'm sure these guys will put patches in. Not that that should be a thing, but if anything, really ambitious of them to make a game like this in the first place. But that one's actually already released. That one's already out. So those are the three that I've been getting into.
I've got a question for you, Pneumatics. So you were mentioning indie games, like indie game developers, as not so much indie as they are AA, but I would imagine, I would venture to guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, any one of you, isn't really the definition of an indie developer somebody that doesn't rely on financial backing from another publisher? And I'll give you an example, and I'll actually give you an example from Ferret 64. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Yemmy.
You better not say Captain Blood over there.
No, not Captain Blood, I promise you. But I will reinforce that Yemmy does not like Captain Blood. I'm actually talking about Arrowhead Game Studios, the developers of Helldivers 2. Now, you had mentioned in your podcast at one point that they have announced that they have made enough money from the proceeds from Helldivers and Helldivers 2 that they can break away from their publisher, which was actually PlayStation Publishing. That now will make them their own AA studio. Is that not what the definition of indie developer is, when they do not have to rely on financial backing from another publishing company? Or am I incorrect?
So, in my opinion, I don't think that really matters as much. Like, I don't know. I mean, you can have a solo dev that gets financial backing, and I don't think that doesn't make them indie. Is that what you're trying to state? Like, if they're financially backed, then they're not really indie anymore?
Well, I'm talking about relying on a big indie developer, and there is a conversation out there that Studio Far Out, who did our Game of the Month, Deliver at All Costs, is dotted line not really an indie developer because they are published by Konami. But
See,
it's a small group, but they have financial backing.
see, I wouldn't. Sorry.
No,
I wouldn't even take it that far. I don't think so, because I would still say if there's a team of 5 people making a game and they get financially backed by Konami, I don't think that automatically quote unquote disqualifies them from being an indie. I think that still makes them an indie. It's just that their game was good enough in the eyes of a big backer that they were like, yeah, we like this. We will fund you to make this happen. And I think that is one of those, like, even if they didn't get the financial backing, they would have made that game anyways, and they would have still be considered indie.
Right.
That's my opinion on that, though.
We'll give you another example here. There is Hello Games. They were they've been working. They were working on No Man's Sky from 2011 on with 15 to 17 developers working for that. And they're now 35 to 37 developers large. They're independent. They publish their own games. They're definitely indie, but they've got their own financial dependence and they have a larger staff now. Is that something that would they no longer be considered indie because they have 37 developers versus when they first started with 15? I'm just trying to understand.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's the why I stated too is I think it's a bit wishy-washy when it comes to really what defines indie, double A, triple A. I mean, anyone could look and be like, yeah, Rockstar Games, triple A company, right? But when it comes to indie to double A, it kind of blurs the lines. So to that, I think that No Man's Sky started indie, turned into double A with the success they had. And I think we've talked about that in prior episodes too, where it's like I feel like when a game when indie studio goes out and they make a banger game and it sells millions of copies, then they have the means and the ways to hire people on to make a bigger game. And if that does successful, they can go on and grow and grow. And then you got, someone that started maybe solo and then turns into, like I stated, like Rockstar. So it's like there's a lot of talk of that too, like with indie companies that came up. And you'll hear that sometimes when you see those double A developers, I should say, and they'll be like, "Oh, started indie roots," right? So now that's a new term going around. They have indie roots, right? So in my head, what I've always said, and this is not this could be like completely wrong, but in my head, I was always like, "Oh, so indie's like I stated, up to maybe like 15 devs, right? Making a game, and anything above that." Is like now you're starting to get like teams of people grouping off, and it's starting to become double A. But I could be completely wrong on that. This is just what I've always thought, I guess.
Yeah, I think indie roots is kind of a funny statement because every studio out there started indie essentially.
Right.
You look at EA, you look at Insomniac, you look at Santa Monica, you look at a lot of these like companies that have been around for quite some time who started somewhere very small. Like Insomniac started with like PS1 games, and EA, I mean, wow, even like Activision, they have like those collections of like old Atari Activision games. I mean, EA has strong indie roots, and so does Activision, and so does, I mean, even Nintendo started out as a toy company and then slowly turning into a big game developer. I just find that statement a little bit funny. Like, I get where people are coming from when they use it, but it's still like, well, if we're gonna call, if we're gonna call it what it is, I mean, EA has a lot of those indie roots as well.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Fair point. Yep.
But there is like a, going back to what Mass was saying, like there's a blurred line there of like, when did EA become double A and then triple A? Like, when did Activision become double A, triple A? Because it really, like, looking back, it just feels like a shock. Like, all of a sudden, like, Activision's the biggest company out there, or Nintendo is all of a sudden selling thousands of consoles and stuff like that. Like, there's a bit of a blur there, and then it's almost like an explosion happens with a lot of these companies where they have like that one big hit game where they have a couple of games in a row, and then all of a sudden they can expand to being like a 30 to 50 person outlet, and then then you might say like, oh, that's a double A studio, and then once they start publishing and developing, I feel like that's when like the triple A comes around. Triple A starts to be used.
Oh yeah, I like that point. When they start to be the publisher, then they can throw that AAA title on.
And then there's always like an asterisk next to it, because there's always like someone that I can think of where it's like, well, Playtonic Games, they also publish their own games, but they're still very indie because they have like a group of like 30 people working, but they're like helping other developers who are like very small get their games noticed and stuff like that. So it's like there's always like a little asterisk next to everything you say, because it's like, well, technically they do publish their own games and they also develop games, but they're not AAA by any means.
Yeah. I think did you get, obviously you guys have all either heard or played Expedition 33, Clair Obscure?
Yeah. I played it all the way through.
I cannot wait to play that. I got my wife into that game too, and she does not get into RPGs. And I was like, well, you could try it, and she's really getting into it. So, but I bring this game up because this is one I did a quick search. Is Clair Obscure Expedition 33 an indie game? And some places say yes, and some places say no. And if you go to their website, it shows all the people that worked on the game, and it's, I think, a collective of 27 or 28 people people. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, so they're double A. But some people may believe that they are an indie. So I do find that's kind of like that's where it does get kind of like in the gray. I guess it's as of right now, it's kind of like just, I guess, opinion based of like what you really think of where this game company stands, or
Yeah,
these game devs.
I think when a studio becomes very recognizable, you start to have these conversations. Before this game came out, like who was talking about Sandfall Interactive, who was actually talking about them. But the game's out now, and now it's like, well, I mean, this has AAA quality, and it's all this stuff, and it's like, well, I mean, I would agree that's like more of a AA studio. I mean, we don't get a lot of big studios out of France other than like the big wigs over like Ubisoft.
Right. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because Sandfall Interactive was founded by former Ubisoft employees.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but like I commented on a episode of your podcast in the past where it's like Oblivion Remake could have easily overshadowed Expedition 33 if it wasn't so damn good, right? Like in another universe, and we're talking about alternate universes again, but Expedition 33 comes out and it does not get the fanfare that maybe it deserves, or whatever is happening in that timeline, because Oblivion releases on the same week and it amasses 500,000 players or whatever. Like Microsoft easily could have buried this amazing gem of a game with their just rash decision to just shadow drop it the same week. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's funny, that episode that you commented on, I remember because I wanted to, it's funny, we're revisiting kind of in a way, because I had it in my head, I'm like, all right, we got to revisit this at some point, because I think it was like the week after Clay Obscure was like just blowing up like crazy. I'm like, holy crap. Like we just mentioned a little blip of it in there, and it's like outdoing Oblivion right now. So yeah, no, good stuff.
I think it has like 3.3 million players, which is pretty crazy.
Wild.
Or was it 3.3 million sales? It's one of the two.
I think sales. But
I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if it had that many players as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it has about the same, maybe even more. Yeah.
Now, see, that kind of comes back to what you said too, New, that if it is a really good game, it eventually takes off like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
It's going to break out because it's supposed to break out.
Yeah, like even if it's during our shadow drop stuff we were talking about it, how it could overshadow it, but then New, he just stated, he was like, I think that if it's a really good game, it's going to stand out regardless, and seems to be pretty much proven to be true.
Yeah, it'll eventually get the light it deserves. All right, Kronos, what have you been gaming in lately?
Well, I've been streaming kind of the usuals, but been branching out. Like we tried out the Survival Machine the other week. It's like a zombie survival game with like a base builder aspect to it. It's all right. It's lackluster on content right now, so I'm waiting to see how that changes. I've been playing the Spell Brigade some. We jumped back on Liar's Bar. And then honestly, when I ain't streaming, I've been firing up the GameCube and the PlayStation and going back and playing a lot of older games like Pokemon Coliseum and Legend of the Dragoon. Just kind of reliving those like older days just to see how the games were back then and getting a feel for it versus how it's changed to now.
Retro nostalgia.
Yeah, I like taking it back sometimes. I haven't streamed them because I'm like, I just kind of want to enjoy this to myself, like not be focused on trying to talk to people that are chatting and stuff or staying entertaining. I can just sit here, casually play it, and enjoy myself.
Oh yeah, you need that, man. How about you, Yemmy? What you been gaming lately?
Oh man, yeah. What haven't I been gaming lately? I feel bad because I haven't been playing a lot of like indie games recently, but the Elden Ring Night Rain has been a bit of an obsession with me for the past like week now. The like $50 battle royale style Souls-like game, and it actually works pretty well, all things considered. Like there's no PvP aspect to it. You are just fighting enemies from like the base game and other games in the past from the From Software line of IPs, but it works really well, all things considered, and it's still a pretty challenging experience, even though you have three people working together able to revive each other if they go down. Like it still can kick your ass sometimes. But as for like older games that I've been playing, like on stream right now, I'm playing through like Sonic games. I'm doing a Sonic marathon all summer long, and I recently was playing Sonic and the Secret Rings on the Wii, and it's kind of bad. Like it's one of those Sonic games where it's like, well, I understand where the Sonic hate comes from because this one's pretty bad. I mean, there's a dedicated like tutorial for walking backwards in the game. And I'm like, if you need to have a tutorial for walking backwards, you've kind of missed the mark almost immediately in this space.
Yeah.
But it's a game that I played when I was like 12, 13 years old. So, it's a walk down memory lane a little bit, even though I remember nothing about the game. And then the only other game to mention is I got to give a shout out to Death Stranding, because even though I finished streaming that a couple months ago, like I still boot that thing up and do my daily deliveries. And with the new game coming out, I'm just like ecstatic to move on to Hideo Kojima's next masterpiece, because I love Death Stranding. I think it's like I honestly feel like it's one of his best games, if not his best game, next to Phantom Pain. So got to give a shout out to my boy Norman Reedus in Death Stranding.
Nice, dude. Oh, yeah. It's funny. I follow Hideo Kojima, botching his name probably, but I follow him over on X, and I literally, in the morning, I'll be going through, and all of a sudden I come across like 20 posts that he's gone put up of something of Death Stranding 2 and everything. That's actually a game I didn't even know existed, which is nuts because I hear so many good things about it now that I know of it. Death Stranding, the first one, I should say. And then the hype behind the new one coming out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I love following Hideo Kojima, because, like, you'll be scrolling through your timeline and all of a sudden he'll have, like, 4 pictures of him playing Death Stranding and he's making funny faces. And I'm like, yeah, that's the vibe. That's like the vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's good, man. Yeah. So we've all been getting, I like the variety. We've all been getting into something a little bit different here and there. Talking about a little bit different, there's so many different games to choose from with the Steam Next Fest going on. Holy crap. Have you guys been on X to see any of the games, and are you interested in any of the games coming out? So Steam Next Fest obviously is right now. It is spanning from June 9th to June 16th, and it's got demos galore of new games that may be coming out soon or in the next couple of months or even the next year. So there's a lot going on. Are there any standouts for you, Kronos?
Yeah, one of them I was actually looking at it's called All Will Fall. It's a base builder that is like based on a post-apocalyptic world, and it's you build your base, but like storms will come in and stuff like that, and it can actually destroy your structures. But you're trying to survive too. And like one of the pictures I've seen of it, this person, this sounds brutal, but they had a body, like a human body that they were chopping up, I guess, for food. And I'm like,
God.
That just looks so intriguing to me that I'm like, I can't wait to try this. But like it shows them building like, like oil refineries and all. It's like the typical base builder. You got to get your, refineries and your mills and stuff. And you're like stranded out at sea too. So it's very interesting how they're trying to play on this. I'm curious to see like how you find resources to build stuff while you're literally stranded out in the middle of the ocean.
Nice. That reminds me, there is another game. Geez, I can't remember. I listened to a lot of Thomas Brush on his YouTube channel, and he talked with another dev that decided to go full time and try and do this gig all on his own, a solo. And he had made a game you were describing just like that. And it's funny because Brush had told him, said, hey, man, I really think, because the guy it was like an island builder. Life of me, I can't remember what it was called, but it was one of those, you build your islands, you build these structures, and then I think nothing would happen, and that was it. And he's like, man, you need a game loop in there somewhere. I just feel like if you throw in like maybe a hurricane comes through and destroys things, and then the player has a reason to rebuild, and maybe you put in things that are upgradable. And he's like, if you do that, it will be killer. So it sounds like someone else took that and ran with it. By the sounds of what you're explaining.
It almost sounds identical to what I'm looking at. Like, because it shows like whole like communities living on these islands and stuff. Okay, the trailer. Yeah, that's some. Like I'm watching the trailer now, and it's like they're like executing people and stuff too. So
my God.
Yeah, like they they literally just kicked the guy off a bridge, and he had a rope tied to him. I don't know what happened after that.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah, like that is looking brutal. So I'm definitely gonna try that out for sure.
Eating people, throwing people off of bridges. I'm in.
Right? Yeah, just sign me up for that.
Give me it.
I am here for it.
Let's jump right over to you, Yemmy. Have you been in the buzz of the Steam Next Fest? Have you been looking at anything that in particular, or Is it past your radar right now?
I'm always looking for the next like indie game to really change up a formula. Last year, obviously, like with Balatro, and there was a game called Arctic Eggs that came out where you're pretty much just frying eggs in a pan. Like I'm always looking for the weird and wacky ones that maybe someone's not like gonna notice right away. Like obviously Balatro went crazy, so it's like I can't take any credit for that one. But this year, there's a game that I don't know how to pronounce because it starts with an exclamation point, but it's called exclamation point MRAK or Mrak, I guess. And this is a pretty like interesting looking one in a lot of ways because if you remember the game Tanks from back in the day, like the grid pattern, like green. Maz probably knows. He's old enough. That was a joke. Beep that. Maz didn't laugh.
Aw.
But essentially, it has like this polygon, hexagonal like grid system, but it's all black and white and gray. So it's a very very interesting art style. It's like a first person shooter, almost like one of those first person shooters where you have a lot of options. Like you can throw a canister and shoot it, and it blows up, or you can like set a trap behind you, or shoot a battery while it's being thrown in the air and electrocute the enemies around you. So it's just one of those games that I just kind of had my eye on for a little while, and there is a demo with the Steam Next Fest. If you want to check that out, it looks pretty cool. Like I said, I love a unique experience, and the unique art styles are also one of the things I love as well.
Oh yeah, I'm always looking for the standout. It's funny. I always gravitate mostly to the pixel art games, and like I said, when it's hand drawn, it's even more of like a wow factor for me. And funny enough, out of all these games, one of them, A Forge of the Fae, that I just discussed that I had played the demo of, is being promoted big time as well for the Steam Next Fest. So I'm glad to see that. It's a nice little pixel game, like I said, a little RPG. Anything that brings me back to the nostalgic era of, or brings the nostalgia out of from when I played Final Fantasy games back in the day. So those are the kind I look for. And it, of course, I would love, look at that. Artist Impact is being promoted on there too. Cool. Yeah, so all these cool little games. Other than that, I haven't really getting into it. It's like it's almost overkill to a point. Like there's so much to go through and choose from, and some of these will not be available after Steam Next Fest. Most of the developers take it down afterwards, so it's like you got to get it in before it's gone, and you never know which one's going to be the next big thing. So it's a bit of FOMO too when you're going through like, oh, maybe this one. No. Keep going. What about you, Miss?
I'm in the same boat as Pneumatics. It's an overwhelming amount, right? But there are a couple standouts that I like. One being one that you guys I've been gushing over just because it was so good. It's Ruffy and the Riverside, which is one of the ones that promoted. And so Ruffy has those types of old nostalgic feelings akin to Banjo-Kazooie, Mario 64, Super Mario. A lot of people were worried about, because it's a 3D rendered world, but all the characters are hand-drawn in 2D, and you kind of worry about it. At first, it's like, does that work? And it does work. Another game that's coming out, the demo's already been out, but it's one that stuck by me, and I don't know how it got past me, to be honest with you. It is called The RPG. And it is a parody. For those of you that know me, I'm a big fan of Bethesda games. It is a parody of Skyrim, which is pretty cool. And
like
so
a parody as in like it's making fun of it, or
it's making fun of it. You know, it's
okay, all right.
So it starts out, you get attacked by the dragon, but the dragon is called a glitch dragon, and he just crashes out of the sky at the very beginning. Instead of wreaking havoc, he just kind of glitches and crashes out, which is hilarious. And then there is a dungeon that you go into, and there are monsters that don't want to be there. They're revolting. And so you decide in that game if you side with the monsters and help them with their revolt, or you help the kingdom and you just kind of put them in their place. So I'm looking forward to playing that. And then I think this one might get Kronos' attention a little bit too. It's called Naughty. And so really what it is, it's
Why would that get my attention?
because you're naughty. No,
Sorry,
so I'll read the description. This is one that's coming out. It's get ready to experience the most unsettling Christmas Eve of your life in Naughty, a puzzle horror game that mixes holiday cheer with spine-chilling terror. So you get chased around by Santa Claus in the house, and I can see like I think of Repo when I see the trailer of this, just like the type of that close quarters, and I think of Repo. I think of Chronos. So, but it does look really cool. It looks like a lot of fun. It's a horror game. It's a puzzle game to get through the house, and sometimes he shows up and he chases you throughout the house. You got to hide. Lots of really good things. I mean, there's literally hundreds of games that are going to be in the next fest, and it again, just to kind of close out, it's an overwhelming amount to a certain extent as well.
Yeah, there's a game called Desktop Succubus that I think Kronos would really like.
So this naughty game, it actually reminds me of like a Phasmophobia mixed with like Dead by Daylight.
Yeah, that's a very, very good.
That is what it reminds me of.
Yeah,
because it's got the house like like Phasmophobia, but then you got the Santa Claus, which is like the killer in Dead by Daylight. So it's
right, and Phasmophobia has that kind of like that close quarters feel to it, and it's like the same thing with Repo. I mean, that's got the same type of feel to it because you have a finite area that you can. But the only difference is you can see the enemies versus Phasmophobia, where you can't see them.
So another game that I was looking at was a game called The Hatchling. Way easier name to say than the last one I talked about, by the way. And this is like set in like a industrial like sci-fi like lab, and the entire vibe of it is like it almost reminds me of like the original Alien movie, where it's very muted colors, very dark, very grimy. It's got like that greenish brownish glow, or yellow, I guess you could say, yellowish glow on it, and there's like this alien egg in the middle that you're trying to take care of, and I guess the main goal is to hatch it eventually. So who knows what's going to happen there, but I thought that this one also was a pretty cool looking game. It definitely had like a very fun, like almost like a PS1 aesthetic kind of art style to it, but obviously a bit more detailed than that. But looks like it's pretty cool, like a little management game where you try and grow an alien egg and hopefully hatch and not kill you.
It looks like it's got like some BioShock vibes to it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I mean, it might. I think you're just in that room though. Like from what I was looking at, it just looks like you're just in that room the entire time.
Yeah, the trailer just looks like it's only showing the one little area. But
Yeah, that's what's nice, man. Going through all these, seeing all the different ones. Like, there's literally something for everyone.
Yes,
I like that.
I like how if you scroll through it, like everyone's gonna pick out something different. I'm looking for like those more moody kind of like artsy games, right? And maybe someone else is looking for something that's like a farming simulator. You got like 15 of those and they're mixed in, and then you have like someone who's maybe looking for a game that is more like hand drawn, like pneumatics, where it's like you can definitely like pick those out throughout this list. Like it's just it's like thousands of games.
Yeah, literally. It's probably one of the best things about things like this, like Steam Next Fest or any kind of showcases from, Sony or Microsoft or Xbox and PlayStation, I should say. Like them doing these kind of showcases to showcase these indie games that most people wouldn't even know existed and get some developers on the map. It's awesome because it leads to, like, let's say going back on like if the developer releases a game, gets into views people and they're like, oh, I need to try this out. It does really well. That sets up the developer who's really good at developing great games to continue on to make more great games for more people. That's what didn't the Xbox showcase just pass as well? But I didn't really get into that. I know it was focused on the Steam Next Fest so far with all the demos because it's so much easier on my computer or on my Steam Deck. I just pop it up, download it, play it out real quick, and usually within like the first minute I know if I'm going to enjoy it or not. Or so, I mean, there are some times where it's like, okay, I know I need to play the full demo to really know and get an idea. And then, as I've told Kronos and Maz plenty of times before, where it's like, if I play these demos out and the next day my brain's popping up, oh, I really like this one, I really like that one, those are the ones I write down, because those are the ones I know, I'm probably going to enjoy them fully when they fully come out.
Yeah, a lot of times I won't even play a demo. Like if I'm like super interested into a game, a lot of times it happens with like AAA games, but I won't even like play a demo. And if I do play a demo, it is usually like an indie game where it's like, well, I don't, I just want to get like the vibe. And a lot of times with those demos, I'll also just play like 10, 15 minutes. And if I'm clicking with it, I'll go add that to my wish list. And I will get that eventually.
Right? Man, speaking of wish list, don't you have like, it's your library in general. We talked about your Steam library where it's like a ridiculous amount of backlog, right?
Yeah, backlog spans across multiple platforms, but the Steam one is quite large.
Do you like this, a little sidetracking here, but do you like having the hard copy more than the digital?
Oh yes, yeah. I will actually rebuy games physically when they go on sale enough if I already have it on Steam. I'm like recently, what was the game I was playing? Balatro, duh. I was playing Balatro, and there's a PS4 or 5 version of the game that comes with like actual Joker cards from the game in the game case, and it was like on sale for like $10 on Amazon. I was like, yeah, I'm definitely picking that up because I love that game, and I'm a big physical media guy. Like even though I have 1,000+ games on my Steam library, I'm a huge physical guy. I mean, I have I had a whole stream a few weeks ago of just be putting my physical collection onto a new shelf. I had to upgrade my shelf because it's just getting so big. The one thing that always scares me about collecting games, especially digital games like ones that you download onto your PlayStation or your Switch, Switch 2 now at this point, is the fact that like 5-10 years down the road they could just decide like, yeah, we're just going to turn the servers off for the PS4, and all of a sudden all those digital games, or like let's say you have a digital code inside of a case like they do with a lot of Switch games, it's just useless to you. There's nothing there. But with physical collecting, as long as you have a good environment like I do, or where it's like climate controlled and whatever, those games are going to last forever. Kronos mentioned earlier he was playing GameCube games and PS2 games, and yeah, that's the stuff that I love collecting, like these old games that I used to play and also other people used to play, and that collection is also growing as I get more games from like sales, just like on Amazon or even from eBay at some points as well. I find like the really really good sale on there. So I as much as I enjoy buying games on Steam for like $2 a pop, if it comes out physically in the future, whether it be from a limited distributor or a big retailer, whatever, I will try and pick that up when it's also on sale, because I just, especially if I like the game enough. Like if they do a physical copy of Arctic Eggs in the future, like I know I'm picking that up. Will it happen? Probably not. But it is something that like is on my mind, where it's like, oh, that game, I love that game on my Steam account. I'll just pick that up physically because it's like $10 or whatever. Yeah, roundabout way of saying yes, I also collect physically.
No, I love it, man, because I'm the same way. If I can get it physical, I will get it, because I've had that thought too, where it's like, well, in 10 years from now, is this game even going to be available for me to play anymore? I don't know. So it's nice having that physical copy that I can pop in and play whenever I want. And which is weird now because, like I said, I play mostly on my PC, so I haven't been able to do that very often. But we do have a place by me called Disc Replay, and they're like, your average like place people go in, trade in old games. So they got any game you could really think of, from the Wii, the GameCube, Nintendo 64, even all the way up to the newest stuff. And my wife has to keep me away from that place because if I go in, I'm like, but this one's only $2, this one's only $10. And then, before I'm leaving out the store with $200 worth of merchandise, and she's like, really? Did you really need all that? Yes. You don't understand, because one day in 5 years, I'll be like, you know what? I might want to play this.
Yeah, I love those like mom and pop style video game stores. About 2 or so years ago, I found a Gears of War Chainsaw Lancer from the collector's edition of like Gears of War 2 or whatever for like $100. And I looked on eBay and they're selling for like 200 something. I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely doesn't matter. I'm getting this.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah. What about you, Chronos Maz? I know it's a little side tangent here, but what do you feel about that? Like, do you like having a physical copy, or do you not care? It's digital all the way. How about you, Chronos?
I prefer the physical copies, if I'm being honest. Because well, like kind of like Yemmy said, like 10 years from now, because I'm a diehard Halo fan. 10 years from now, what if they take like Master Chief Collection off of the online or something? It's like I have a physical copy right here that I can play in my old Xbox or my 360, like consoles, and I've kept them working, so I know they still work. I play them every now and then just to make sure they still work, and just the physical copies are nice to have because you can always go back, and sometimes it's the feel of them back on those consoles is a lot better too than trying to play it on a newer console.
Yeah, there's nothing like opening up like your old Xbox 360, hearing that disc tray come out, loading in the new disc, and hearing the gears start to whir in there. Like, oh, there's something so ASMR, I guess, about that.
Yeah, and then see, I got the Halo 3 360, so like when you push the tray button, it does like the shield recharge noises and stuff.
Oh,
so it's like,
man.
that nostalgia, man. It's hard to beat.
That's awesome. I love that.
And then, as the like Yemmy was saying too, like I like I collect the statues. I got the Marcus Phoenix statue, the Master Chiefs, the Reach statues. I mean, it's you don't get that with a digital copy ever.
And it just sucks that like Xbox has kind of been leading the charge a bit with this too, where they're putting like Doom: The Dark Ages and a couple other games, like they're putting them on physical discs, but it's just like 800 megabytes of data, and then you have to like download the rest from the internet. Like that's not physical. That's tech. That's pretty much digital. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Switch 2 has those digital code cards as well. So it's like, yeah, it's literally just like they could shut, like, once again, Xbox Series X, 10 years down the line, you put that Indiana Jones physical copy you have into there, it could be like, well, the service isn't live anymore, so we can't download the information from the disc. It's like, what?
Yeah. It's scary, man.
Don't
Do you
get-
feel the same? Oh, I was going to say, do you feel the same as?
Well, so I don't collect physical copies as much as I would like to.
Beep that. Get him off the podcast.
I know, right? Yeah, I need
What?
to be done, right? I don't. You guys must not have heard me. I don't
The
collect
technology
them as much as
guy?
I'd like to, right?
Unacceptable.
And I'm going to say something that is like a complete, like almost like a non sequitur. Is
I
that
get the beep ready.
I hate SaaS, software as a service. Not talking about Yemmy's SaaS. I'm talking about SaaS, software as a service. And I've made my living off of software as a service, but it's for the reasons you guys were just talking about. What if we take the service away? What if we shut down the servers? There's no recourse to that. And these companies like Epic and Steam and even PlayStation, Xbox, they have it in their terms and service. Terms and conditions is there's no backlash for it. We decide to shut it down, it's done. So you guys are smarter than I am by collecting physical copies, and maybe it's something I should get back into here in the near future. But I play so many games, and the only ones that have really stood out in the last few years for me are Bethesda games, because it's just kind of I've kind of formed the habit of that. Going into these indie games and changing the purview has kind of opened my eyes to that and almost reinvigorated my excitement for video games. I think it was kind of getting stale for me. And one of those things where you just didn't realize it was getting stale until you changed it up and you're like, oh my God, this is great. So I think it's kind of revitalizing my interest in indie games, doing everything that we've been doing, and my interest in collectibles as well.
I do.
I was going to say AAA burnout is a real thing because so many AAA games are these huge open worlds. And I mean, Maz knows from playing Bethesda games, like you go into a Bethesda game and you have a 50-hour experience just to get through the story. And I think that a lot of people who play games like myself, who is just like trying to smash out as many games as they can to either talk about them or just like play them because you enjoy the hobby, it can get a bit taxing. So like having a couple of like shorter bite-sized indie games in there, like Wanderstop from earlier this year, or something from last year like Mouthwashing or something like that, like it really just helps to break up that monotony of all the, I'm going to call it slop, but I don't mean to call it slop, but like the AAA slop that comes out every year. It's just like the trough is deep, and these games are getting to be so bloated. Like Assassin's Creed Shadows is like 100-hour game. It's like I just don't have the time to play that entire thing like I want to, but it's like, but then again, like here's an indie game that came out that's like 20 hours long or 15. That's way more palatable. And there was a couple of years in my life where like I was only playing like AAA games, and by the time the year was up, I was like, damn, I don't know if I can keep up with this. Like this is crazy.
And that's kind of what I've been like experiencing as well, Yemmy. And you had in the past, to be fair, buddy to buddy, you have suggested that, hey, switch it up with some shorter games, weave some of them in. I've had a lot of people say that lately and over the years, and finally just cutting it out and moving forward with what we're doing here, it's been really a wonderful experience.
I wonder if that has something to do with us being content creators in general too, because like you said, Yemmy, it's also, you do it for fun, but you also do it because you want to get through the games to talk about them. And we do that as well, I think, because you don't want to be behind the curve when these new games are popping out. So when you have 10 plus games in the month that you want to pump through, well, it's kind of hard to do that when you do have those 50, 100-hour games, and you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to finish that out. It's a little bit different when you aren't doing content creation. But even so, like just before I was doing content creation, if I were to play a game like that still you would have this fear of FOMO with new games popping out, because by the time you're finished with that one, who knows what other big games would have released when you had the time to get through it, you know?
Yeah.
It's a bit much. And it's like, I don't know, how much can you really enjoy a game 100 hours through? I'm really, really bad at finishing games. And it's sometimes, I think it's like a 30-hour mark where I'm like, oh my God, I just need to get through it. I just need to finish it.
I'm with you.
Yeah, there's some longer games that they feel like they just kind of extend themselves for no reason. And this year I've actually, funny. It's kind of ironic because like this year I've made the point to have a personal goal of finishing more longer games. So that's where like I finally played all the way through Red Dead Redemption 2, and that's like a 60 some hour game. And I played through like Pokemon Sword, which can be up to like 50 to 60 hours. And I recently played that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which came out, which also like has enough content to be like 100 something hours, and I loved those experiences. So even though I do like my shorter indie stuff, like there are some games like when they click and they're longer, you just fall in love with them and you play them forever. But if it's something like, I had it more so with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where it was just like, wow, like I just kind of want this to end. Like, is it fun? Yes, but kind of like the too much of a good thing kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. Especially, like you said, when the game just clicks. I did the same with Pokemon Sword. I played that all the way through. And then when I finished it, it was, I think I was either debating on buying Pokemon Shield, and I was like, no, maybe I'll just do the DLC. And I begged my wife, I'm like, can I please buy the DLC? She's like, but you finished the game. No, need to play the DLC. So I got that too. And I played that through. And yeah, there's not, I would say a handful of games that throughout the year that I'm that passionate about, where it could be that long and it didn't feel that long,
Oh yeah, for
That's
sure.
the power of Nintendo with Pokemon, though, I will say. 'Cause I've played them all the way through, and I'm like, I don't get bored of them. So it's just a prime example of a good game that can keep you drawn in the whole time too.
I think we all have those kind of games, like where it doesn't matter how long it is, as long as you are like enjoying it, like it feels like 5 minutes has gone by. I mean, I feel like with the Mass Effect trilogy, the original trilogy, when they did that Legendary Edition, which was a remaster of all three of the original games, I played that for like 100 something hours. But in my mind, like when I think back, I'm like, I just kind of like played those like a couple hours at night, right? And then like my other half is like, no, like you were up until like 3 a.m. playing those games. And I'm like, I don't remember doing that.
Legit. I did that. I got obsessed with No Man's Sky. It's funny, like bringing it back to indie games, right? The No Man's Sky I got into, and I would like come home from work, jump on it right away, and eat dinner while playing, and then probably annoyed my wife. And she's like, "You gonna get off?" No, I'm playing like into the night. You got to go to work tomorrow. I know, that's okay. 1 a.m. I can deal with a bit of a lack of sleep. It's fine. And then until it wasn't, and then I got burnt out on it because of doing that. But yeah, there's many instances of that, getting sucked
1
into a
a.m. is
game.
easily 4 a.m. with a game like that.
Yeah, dude.
Just one more level,
One more
4
planet.
hour. Yeah.
Let's go discover. I need to go. Need to go put this together so I can make this. Okay, let's go get that. Jeez, you know what? Well, I'm here. I might as well go get these star charts. Oh, you know what? Let's go get a few of those things. I mean, I can't stream that. It's like an ADD nightmare for me streaming that game.
Well,
Yeah.
That's kind of how Minecraft gets at times too. You'll be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go put my stuff in the chest," and then 2 hours later, you're still mining for stuff.
100%.
Yeah. I was going to say, though, being content creators, that's what I brought up the point that we're always trying to plow through the next big game, or a bunch of games throughout the month that are releasing, and trying to get to as much as we can. Do you guys think that content creators help bridge the gap between indie devs and the players, especially with this influx of demos coming through Steam Next Fest? Like, you can, in my opinion, you could either have, it's really a great outcome that you get a great creator that reviews a dev's game and boosts the sales or the potential sales from the wish list, or the unfortunate side where you get a game dev, not a game dev, a content creator that plays the demo and just trashes it, and then it can tank your sales and possibly your sales. That was always a possibility. I think you recently had something like that, Maz, where there was a game you were talking about.
Yeah, there was one. I'm actually doing a game on my channel, and I've been speaking with the developer over on X, and he had mentioned that his concurrent players on his demo had spiked from about average of 15 players online at a given time to 60. And it turns out that there was a YouTuber that just dropped an hour-long video. That YouTuber happens to have 68,000 subscribers and 13,000 views on that in the first 10 hours of it being dropped to kind of influence that. And so, yeah, it can work either way. I think that as influencers, it's a responsibility to, I think you should be fair with your synopsis. I don't think you should pull punches necessarily, but I don't think that you need to be like overly critical or brutalize something, because it's a responsibility when you have that kind of following. But, you know, if you find something and you're like, you really truly enjoy it, and this YouTuber, I watched a little bit of his video and seemed to really enjoy what he was playing. I know that I am enjoying what I'm playing as well. It's good to see that translate into more attention on these games, especially when these developers, like this particular one on this game. Well, I will say it. It's Relic Abyss. It's a demo that's out right now. And what ended up happening was this is their first indie game, and they're really excited about it. It was one of those things, kind of like what you were talking about before, New, as well. I met this person just through one of his posts. It was a screenshot of the publish button, right? I can't believe I'm about to push. This is what it said. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, like with Stardew Valley, that developer that almost didn't publish it. You know, and talking about like you as a developer, what's that going to be like for you? Are you going to be able to do it when the time comes? I mean, of course you will be able to, but what you were talking about in past podcasts was displayed on my screen, and it was really cool to see that. And it's also, I've been following this game since it published. It's cool to see it developing and becoming, no pun intended, the whole thing developing in the mainstream as it's gaining popularity. Last I checked, it had 27 very positive reviews on Steam. It's getting wish listed left and right. And then, of course, this influencer does this and brings it up even more. So really excited to be there at the ground level, just watching it happen and being a part of it, too.
Yeah, I think my heart will explode when I go to push that push pub.
Oh, I have no doubt, but you'll be there to do it, brother. We'll be right there to help you push it.
Yeah, I
Grab
will
his
have a
wrist,
heart
Cronus,
attack.
hold him down. Make him push it.
Yeah, get the defibrillator ready. It's going down.
We'll travel to his house and hit the button for him.
Right.
You imagine? Yeah, you're over and you're like, I'm about to, and I step away, and you just go and click it right away. Don't worry, I got that for you, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, I can't do it. Got click. No.
Oh man, I just remember
He's like, I can't do it. And then we just go kick in his door, be like, we'll do it for you. Click.
I remember the excitement when I released Upjumper on the Android store. And it was, like I said, whenever I talk about it, it wasn't anything big. It was just an endless jumper. The art was terrible, and the gameplay was subpar. But it was awesome because it's me and Joe, we made it. It was like, yes, we did this in 8 months. We got it out there. And because of that, it was like, dude, oh my God, the word for it is just gone. I can't get it, but it was out of there. My brain was in another place when I published that. So yeah, no, I could absolutely see that. And then, you know, that's what sucks too, is like I said, what the drawback of that is that when they publish something, they publish their game and an unfortunate thing comes through where like a bad bug comes through and it could be detrimental to the gameplay, and the wrong person gets a hold of it and they go and tell the world, and then they're like, oh my God, I need that. And then they're rushing to fix it. You know, they're freaking out. It's a terrible thing. And I do like what you said. Like, we have a responsibility, I think, as creators to be fair. Like, the only way I can see possible of like completely being like, you know what, I don't really recommend this game, or just not even making a review of a game, is if you go to play it and it literally is unplayable. And at that point, you stop, you contact the dev and say, hey, just to let you know, it's unplayable because of these reasons, and I'm not going to be doing a review of it. And that's it. That's how it should be, you know?
100%. 100%. It is a responsibility, because you can literally destroy something, like, especially if you're like a big influencer, you can literally destroy a game with your opinion if you're big enough.
Yeah, I mean, how many people listen to that before you buy guy? I see his videos all the time in my feed. I don't usually watch them, but You know, like let's say he gives the verdict of like don't buy on like a smaller game, like that's obviously going to have a pretty big impact on their sales as a whole.
Crippling, yeah, could be crippling. It's funny you don't really
Yeah,
watch them, but they still show up in your feed anyway because
good, you're good.
you fit the algorithm.
You know, kind of how I was saying in the previous episode, you know, like sometimes like the games I play, I base it off of watching other people play it. I know I shouldn't do that on certain games because I should give them each equal chance, but sometimes it's like, you know, eating dinner and watching a video of like, hey, this game looks interesting, and if the person playing it's like, man, this thing is horrible, I'm like, I'm kind of not gonna waste my money on it.
Yeah, I will never finger wag at people just watching a video of something because it's like with how expensive games are getting nowadays, like $60, $70. Yeah, I mean, I would also want to watch gameplay of a game that I'm not too sure about. There's this game called Mind's Eye coming out, or maybe it is already out. But I was watching some gameplay of that, and I was like, yeah, I mean, that kind of made me decide not to buy it or pick it up right away because it just kind of looked like a bit more basic than they were pitching in the trailers and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, with the age of YouTube, it's become much easier to kind of hone in on what you want to spend your money on, and some creators who are just talking about a game, just shooting the shit. Those are the ones that I kind of put more trust into because they're like the average gamer rather than a conglomerate of reviewers or whatever on a big site.
All right, on that note, I think this is a good time for us to go ahead and do a quick ad break. And when we get back, we're going to revisit a pretty spicy topic and we'll get into our poll and maybe even the mailbag right after this. Hey, Indie Hangout fans, want to hang out with me, Pneumatics, Maz, and Kronos? Join our Discord community. It's a place to chat about the latest episodes, vote on polls, and even ask us questions that can be featured on the next show. Don't miss out. Go to the show notes below and join the Discord community to hang out with other fans and join the conversation with us. And welcome back to the Indie Hangout podcast. Of course, with me, Pneumatics, Kronos, Maz, and our friend Yemmy. So, now that we got through the Steam Next Fest stuff, we should probably visit something we visited in the first episode we ever did, which has been a topic of debate as of late, especially with a few games coming out. One of them, Borderlands, which, yes, I know is not indie, but it is a topic of a spicy debate here. And then we also have the Nintendo Switch 2 coming out with a pretty pricey game. So, pricing. Do we think the next generation of indie games coming out, do we think they're going to be more around the $24.99 range? Do we think that's like just a thing now? Because I swear it was like, only a little bit over a month ago that we said the norm was $14.99, and it was like a week later, all of a sudden it popped up, and we're like, what the hell happened?
So I'm gonna kick this off real quick. And I'm the one that said it's like, hey, it's gonna start eking up, and I've noticed that. The Precinct, $29.99. Deliver at all costs, $29.99. A lot of these games coming out, $24.99. You had mentioned a game, and by the way, it came out a week ago on June 2nd. It is called Zephyr. It's the game that we were talking about. The cel-shaded graphics it took 12 years to develop. And you said that you had seen on Reddit that it was going to be it was going to release at $24.99. And that's kind of,
yeah.
And at the time when you mentioned that in our podcast, it kind of sparked that, oh, look at that, it's going up. Oh, right now, as it stands, it was $17.99 with a discount on Steam. The full price of it is $19.99. Now, for $24.99 or $23.94 or whatever it is, it's a supporter pack. It's going to come with the game. It comes with a soundtrack and a little bit of extra for the development team. Or for the developer. So I think what we might end up seeing is maybe a little bit more of that. And we talked about that when we had our podcast about crowdfunding, talking about Kickstarter, talking about all these other crowdfunding platforms where you can kind of do a little extra, or the DLC when we were talking about DLC packs or season passes where you get a little bit, like you get a skin in a game based off of, giving the developer $3, kind of like a donation to them, but you get a little extra digital reward for doing that. And so I think we might start seeing that a little bit more, hopefully, right? And the ones that really are in love with the game that can go back and add that supporter pack for a couple of bucks if they can afford it. But it's a good way, I think, and I've seen it with Zephyr, and I've seen it with other games recently as well, that maybe that's the workaround. Instead of going up to $24.99, $29.99 as the norm, maybe add that optional supporter pack. And when you package it as a supporter pack, I don't know about you guys, but I'm probably more likely to go with that price, because it's like, hey, you know what? It's a great game. They do a good job. This is their livelihood. I'm going to contribute to that.
Yeah, I agree. The supporter pack is like such a good idea. Last year, a game called Rusty's Retirement came out. It was like a $5 game. The developer put out a like $5 supporter pack. And the only thing you got was a gold skin for the character in the game. I mean, he made much more money just which is not like the most important thing, right? Making money, but he made a lot more money from doing that. I've been following him pretty closely on Blue Sky, so
That's awesome.
yeah, it's great. It's a great idea, and if that can help outweigh the cost or the price increase, I think that'd be the way to go.
100%. 100%.
So that's like the Spell Brigade that I play. They did a support the creator pack, and it was like, you got a skin for each character. It was like a black and white, just drawn art style. But they literally posted on X that they raised enough money from that creator pack that they were able to like hire 2 extra people to help develop the game even more. So it's beneficial in the long run, like how Maz was saying. It's people have more incentive to get those extras.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I like that when, most games when they come out on Steam, when they're published, they come out as at a discount already. So it's kind of easier too if they already have that little bit of a supporter pack of some sort. It's like, oh, okay, so the game's a little bit cheaper, so I can afford doing a little bit more for the dev by buying that supporter pack as well. So that's kind of nice. And I didn't even realize that. I did know it was $17.99, but I didn't know that the actual price was lower than what he had said he was going to put it at on Reddit. So that's nice. That's good.
I mean, it is in there for $24.99, but that's the supporter pack. And that also, it's not only the supporter pack, but it's also the soundtrack as well, which I'm finding that a lot more soundtracks are being offered. And it's one thing that I said in one of my indie game showcases. It actually was the Ruffian the Riverside. Just the music that are coming out sidebar that with these some of these indie games are real bangers. I mean, some really good. I've noticed that with Ruffian the Riverside had some pretty catchy music, and it was also kind of had that retro feel that goes with it. And also the Precinct has its own like original soundtrack. I thought that was absolutely amazing, but I digress. But I just think that that's kind of cool. But we can add these prices, and if we make them optional, it's going to help us keep costs at that $14.99, $19.99 that we are accustomed to.
Yeah. Do you think here's another question for you guys? Do we feel that AAA is a big influence when it comes to indie games upping their price in general? So I'll give you guys a story, and it has to do with publishers. So I think one of the reasons is that if an indie developer gets in with the wrong publisher, unbeknownst to them, they might get some push on getting their game out and upping the price on it, unfortunately. And it's because maybe the AAA or the bigger publishers like, we need a bigger chunk out of this so that we can help support another dev or whatever. And that's not the right way, obviously. So a game I know of is called Pixelshire that came out that was published by Merge Games, and it came out completely broken. The Pixelshire game was one of those that a lot of people were talking about that they were excited for. They thought it was going to be their game of the year, for like more of a cozy style game. And it came out and there's bugs within the first 20 minutes. And it's funny because it was the year prior, they had decided that they weren't going to go and release it. They were going to delay it. And they're like, oh, we're going to delay our game because we don't feel we got all the bugs out. We want to make sure everyone gets a good quality game when it's fully released. And we're not going to do early access. That's something we were going to do, but now we just want to go and release it fully. And I do think the early access thing is because of the one episode we talked about. I think developers are getting pushed back on too many people not going for or bashing early access games, and so they were afraid of getting bashed and wanted to just release it full, which was a terrible idea. They would have been way better off just releasing early access. But so the reason I bring this up though is because the publisher, Merge Games, is actually known for this from some other indie devs that have completely separated from them because they were pushed to release their game in an underdeveloped form, unfortunately. So do you think that these unfortunate souls that come across these less than desired publishers? Is that a reason you think that we're seeing higher prices as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to say that the AAA market affects the indie market, but I mean, you go on Steam and you go to like the new releases, like there's just such a wide range of prices, anywhere from like, I mean, I sometimes find games for like 39 cents on Steam and they're just like these, thrown together like 2 second games. One time I bought one that was like a dung beetle and you had to like keep him on the ball of dung for as long as you could. That was the entire game. It was like 39 cents. I
I've
was like,
seen
yeah,
that.
yeah, I got my minutes worth of gameplay, my money's worth of gameplay out of that one. So I think with large, like we were talking about AA games and stuff like that before. I think like with AA games, it's definitely going to affect the prices. Like just looking at what Maz already said, like the most recent ones, like the Precinct and stuff like that, they're definitely having to up their prices, and I think it is the AAA market influencing that. But I think for like the real down the dirt indie developers, I mean, they're gonna release their games for what they feel is an honest price, no matter what. I mean, the guy behind Balatro could have released that game for like $30, but it's 20. And I think that there's just a different mentality when you do have that big publisher standing over you, going, "Well, we got to make money. Where's the money?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree with
Yeah.
that 100%. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, you're good. I was gonna completely agree with that. I do think that, and thinking back to my story, I didn't really, you're right. It was a big roundabout way. I didn't really even get to the point of why it came out at a high price, also in an underdeveloped state because they were pushed by the publisher, Oh, I'm just curious if that's happening to a lot of unfortunate indie devs out there, and that's why we're starting to see this bump up in price because one indie dev does it, and they're like, wait, if they did their game for this much, I can do mine for this much, and so on and so forth. But then you got the real, as we've stated plenty of times before, the real passion driven indie devs that are just like, yeah, I think my game is worth this much, so I'm going to put it up there for that, right? And it's more about getting their game out there because it was their passion project, as we always say, and getting eyes on it, and that reward factor of people enjoying something you've worked on for probably at least a year or 2 years, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you also have to consider overhead. So I think if we're look at CD Projekt Red, I'll use that as an example because when I'm thinking of underdeveloped, quickly pushed out games, I mean, Cyberpunk 2077, awesome game, was not ready to release. Lots of problems. We've mentioned this before in the podcast, but it's the pressure. And CD Projekt Red has over 1,200 employees in Poland. It's a $2 billion company, but think about everything. 1,200 employees, they got to pay for them. They have to pay for their facilities. They have to pay for their equipment. They have to pay for their studio. They have to pay for everything, right? I'm a solo developer. I'm not personally a developer, but if I am a solo developer, my overhead is much less expensive. I might be able to use Unity, which is free until you hit a certain threshold of sales. Correct me if I'm wrong, New. Same thing with
Yeah.
With Steam. I want to release just on Steam. It's $100 to publish my game. They get a kick of that. So that's a very, very small overhead. I don't need to be, nor should I be. And let's just say this is like my 5th game and it's ultra polished and I've got a team of like 15 people. I shouldn't be, I don't need to be, nor should I be selling my game for $60, $70, $80 because I don't have the overhead these AAA companies do. And then these AAA companies that are doing the publishing for these indie developers, to Yemmy's point, they're like, we got to make money. We got to make money. We got to make money. There's still their overhead that they need to make money off of, even if they're not developing the game. They're financially backing it. They want their money back yesterday. So I think that, and this is my long way around to agreeing with Yemmy, that there's definitely, when the indie developers go on to being dependent on AAA companies, that pushes the price up. And on top of that, there's another facet, I think, as well. And maybe I'm wrong about this. And I'd love to know what you guys think about this too, as well as our listeners. If I could bring the price up as a AAA company, so now it's $50 when I'm younger, then we eke it up to 60. When the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 comes out, oh, now it's $60. Okay, now you're making me mad. All right. Now, what is it, 6, 8 months ago, we're doing $70. Now we're talking about $80. So it's sticker shock, right? So when I'm like, I got to pay $100 for GTA 6 next year, it's going to be 100. You watch, it'll come out as $120.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Well, guess what? $30 doesn't sound so bad anymore, does it? So I think that's kind of an opportunity right there that some of these indie devs are also saying, well, if they're going up to $80, I could get $30. And I've got a good game. I think that it can compete with any of these AAA games. If you're a good developer, you have the confidence in your product like that. And, you're going to save $50 and you're going to have a blast.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up about indie devs in general, right? When they're going to release a game, what their overhead is like compared to AAA or AA, whatever. What I would, when I release my game, there's a couple things I'm going to put in effect of like what price my game is also a couple things on the table. The price is determined by how much a cut Steam's going to take, how much a cut Unity would take, if it actually blew up and it made enough to even warrant that. It's also going to be how much time I put into it. And also if I'm hoping to, if it does well enough, that I can do it full time. And I think that's what a lot of indie devs come out when they release their game. Obviously, passion project, of course, they want to get it out there. But on the inside, they're hoping it does well enough to be successful enough so that after all the cuts are done and over with, they have enough to continue on to their next project without having that 9-to-5 job, which would allow them to be able to get that game out either sooner or do more with the next one, which is, I think, something that's in the back of my mind all the time. But also, it's one of those, when I go to release my game, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I've seen all this and I plan to release my game at $14.99. I'm seeing all the other games. I'm like, oh, well, I could get away with $30. No, I'm probably, if I would, I'd be like, no, I'm just going to stay. If I feel it's worth $14.99, that's what I'm going to put it up as, and just hope that it's successful enough to get me my end goal, right?
Percent. Absolutely. It's got to be appropriately priced, but there are developers out there that are using AAA, AA pricing as justification to say, hey, we can go over this $19.99. Now, and we've talked about $14.99, $19.99. That's what we think is the appropriate price point. It doesn't necessarily mean that is the appropriate price point, and it's probably one of the more common price points there, right? But this is a way of kind of being able to push the envelope as an indie developer, especially as if you are in the indie industry, indie game, if you're in the game right now, indie games are about to blow. I mean, they're already wildly popular. They've already gotten a lot of attention, but I really honestly feel this is the tip of the iceberg, and I do think that that's going to affect the price. And I think that has, with your $29.99 releases. Now, these are some bigger indie developers that have a couple games under their belts as well, right? It's not their first rodeo, except for it's Studio Far Out, which is Deliver at All Costs. I believe that is their first game.
Yeah, it is.
But to Yemmy's point, who's the developer? Who's the publisher? It's Konami, AAA publisher. We're doing this for $30.
Yeah, I just find it kind of humorous that all these AAA and even some AA are looking at what these companies are doing that are at the upper echelon of the video game world, and they're going, oh, well, see, Nintendo is releasing a game for $80, and Gearbox is going to release their next game probably for $80. We can also release a game for $80, right? But it's funny because even though I'm not going to try and defend Nintendo at all, don't get me wrong, but they're actually selling Mario Kart World for $50. That's a $50, to me, because it's in that bundle for $20 off with the Switch 2. That's a $50 game to me. And my theory is that they only listed it at $80 so that people would just buy the bundle. They wanted to buy more, have more Switch 2 sales. So going off of what Nintendo is doing is the worst decision right now, because even $70 games don't feel like $70 games right now. I mean, just last year we had 3 abysmal $70 games, being Skull and Bones and that Suicide Squad game, which I actually kind of enjoyed, but I will say it was not worth the price tag of entry. And there's so many $70 and as much as I love Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, that is not a $70 game by any that is closer to a $50 experience. And so as these AAA developers become, or maybe publishers, I should say, publishers become more savvy, they become more like, oh, we can do this. Like, how much are we willing to take? Like, if an $80 game comes out and it has the same amount of content as something like Skull and Bones, I'm gonna be pretty pissed. And if indie developers start doing this too, where it's like that game where you play as a dung beetle on top of a giant dung ball and you try to keep it on, if that's all of a sudden a $20 game, something's gone wrong.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's a big markup too, from 39
Yeah.
cents.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you on that. That'd be ridiculous. Got anything to add on that, Kronos?
Here, we gotta get you in on it, brother.
Before I skip, I don't want to skip over
you
you,
good?
man.
I was just letting y'all go. I was personally just gonna say, like, it also, to me, it seems like prices vary based on what's, like, how we were saying content in the game, but also like the work that goes into the game. Because, like, you look at, like, New always talks about Stardew Valley. Like, it looks like a really good game, but it looks simple at the same time. Now, if you take, like, The Precinct or Deliver at All Costs, they look like they're really detailed games. And just what little bit of graphic designing stuff I took in school, that's a lot of time in making them look that good. So it's like, the amount of effort you got to put into it to make it look detailed and everything else, that's time consuming. And in modern day, we know that time is money.
Yeah, I guess just to jump off of that with my Skull and Bones example, like that game was in development for 8 years before it finally came out. Like, think of how much money they sunk into that, and they were like, they were probably thinking that they were gonna lose money no matter what at that point. So they were like, you know what, just put it at $70. We'll make a bit of the difference for the people not buying it because it's so expensive, just by the number of sales that we'll eventually get. Yeah,
you kind of got, they got to think into, like, as Maz was saying, like the overhead and everything. And then another thing too, if you think about it, say a single developer makes a game and he releases it for $10. Okay, well, say you have 3 people develop a game and they release that for $10 too. That's a lot less per person that they're going to have at the end, so it's like, I could see, the more people you got, like, hey, we need to make sure everybody kind of gets some money out of this.
And there's also like some franchises that are going to sell, like with this whole Borderlands 4 fiasco and Randy Pitchford's absurd comments. Like, that's like one of the biggest IPs out there. If you don't think that the game's going to sell at $70 and make a profit, that kind of makes me a bit concerned about the game. And when they showed it off at that state of play, I was like, oh, this looks really good. Like, it looks like it's going to be good. But, they're saying that that $70, it might not sell enough copies to cover the cost at $70. I'm like, why? Is it because the game is not as good as you're showing? Or is it more like a greed thing where it's like, we know that people will buy it at $80? Sure, maybe we'll lose a chunk of our audience. The $10 price up, markup will cover that. It's very strange.
I think in a lot of cases with that one it's also how did it do versus how did Borderlands 3 do? We all know that doesn't hold a candle to 1 or 2. It was not. The general consensus is it was not as popular, and I think they're afraid to do that again. I mean, Borderlands 3 had a $140 million budget, and Borderlands 4 allegedly has a $300 million budget. I don't see how, based on. I agree with you, Yemmy. I don't know how they're not going to profit with $70 or with a $70 price tag. Quite honestly,
that also comes back to like someone making an indie game in their house. I mean, how much are they really spending on that? Maybe $1,000 in a year, right? And then you have a big corporation like Gearbox and 2K, and they're funneling in hundreds of thousands, millions at this point of dollars into these projects. And it's like, yeah, of course, like when you're starting to, like, just last year with that Suicide Squad game, they spent it was an absurd amount of money developing that game. And it sold so poorly that it shut down like half the studios at WB, which is terrible. I laugh, but it's terrible. And it's like, well, maybe I say we, but maybe like as publishers and developers, like, it's possible that they're just funneling too many resources into these projects where it's like back in the day you could make a Batman Arkham City for like 80 million and it made all that money back plus way more. And it's like, well, 100%. Can we scale the pricing, like all this money that we're funneling into these games back a little bit? Like, I'm not saying like go around laying off like 50% of your workforce, but there has to be a way to get the development costs of these games down so that we could maybe not see an $80 price tag on a game or a $100 price tag on GTA. Like, I know it's, a lot of work gets put into all these games, but it's still like there has to be a way to alleviate some of these $100 million, $200 million games, you know.
Yeah, I think it's a bit. You're absolutely correct on that. It's where there's got to be something to bring the cost down. And going back to, I wish they were more transparent. I think that's all they need to do. Literally, if Gary Box came out and what's his name again? Randy Pitchford.
Randy
Yeah, Randy
Pitchford.
Pitchford.
Yeah, if he came out,
We call him the dumbass in the
Yeah.
biz.
He's
Yeah,
the
dude.
dumbass.
So I listened to your podcast about that, the whole interaction. I did see the tweet from him about that. I'm like, whoa, like, yeah, that's ridiculous. And I'm a Borderlands fan too. And I was like, instead of making a dumb comment like that, you could have easily just been as transparent as possible. Like, hey, you know what? Well, we don't want to put this game at this price, but in order to, whatever the case may be, it's like, with inflation and things going up in price and technology and blah, blah, blah. And we put this much into it. But we know we're putting our heart and soul into this game to make sure we put the best game in front of our audience. Then I think that would have went over way better than it would have 100%, 110% over way better than that initial comment. Because then the first one is alienate, and the latter is like, okay, well, you still may have people that complain about the price, which I'm definitely one of them. I don't want to go and have to buy an $80 game. No, like that sucks. But if you're coming at me with transparency, then I'm more likely to be like, you know what? Okay, I get it with the state of the way things are right now, prices going up and everything around us goes up except for game prices. It seems at times, or it's like almost like 5 to 10 years apart from when game prices are going up. It's like, all right, it's more, it could take it more, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It could be like, all right, I guess I kind of understand,
Yeah, you said you
Yeah,
were a fan of Borderlands. Are
Yeah.
you paying? Are you going to buy it for $80?
Probably.
Really?
I hate
Okay,
to say it, but
okay,
yeah.
then you are a fan. Okay. Because if you said
Yeah.
no, you're not paying $80 for it. I mean, according to Randy Pitchford, you're not a fan.
I mean,
would-
yeah, I could see that, like certain games that people are gonna pay for, though. I hate to say it that way. Like new Halo, I'd pay whatever they charge for it.
Right.
You're always going to have the super fans like myself and Pneumatics and Kronos and Maz who we're willing to pay the price because we love a franchise or we love an IP. And I think a lot of the games that we love also have had really great track records. Like even though Borderlands 3 was a low point in the series, they picked up their feet and they put out that Wonderlands game which was really good. A bit of a
Yeah.
spin-off. Like Randy Pitchford, my dog's name is Randy too, so like when I say that he perks up. But for him to come out and have these statements that are like jumbled up large paragraphs of just nonsense. Sometimes he's using like really weird phrasing and stuff like that. It's like if you just step back and edited like this giant paragraph down to the good parts, which is like 3 sentences out of the whole thing, and just took out all that fluff and all the woe is me and whatever, you have a good statement there. And if you put that out, people will be like, oh, okay, yeah, I mean that makes sense. But instead you have to, inflate all these things and talk about how I've been working in this industry for 20 years and blah blah blah. It's like most people don't care about that. People are concerned about the pricing, and if you just put out a statement that's cut and dry, transparent, as you said, apologetic too, because of the way that he's been acting.
Yeah.
I think he would earn a lot of that respect back, and we can stop calling him the dumbass.
Agreed. 100%.
That's like he could have just worded like I mean I haven't looked too far into that one. I did see the the comment thing on X about how he said real fans will buy it regardless or find a way to pay for it. And I'm like if he had just like said like hey it's not up to me to set the price, but we promise you it'll be worth every penny. Like okay, people would probably eat that up.
Yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that line that you just said, but, not in just a reply to a random Twitter user or whatever. It's like actually make a statement like on your general feed. Like the problem that I'm having right now with all of the things that he's been saying, because he has replies to people that are like, I mean, books long. And it's just a jumbled up mess of just everything that you can think of. It's like if you just put out a concise statement on your regular Twitter, not just talking like replying to someone, like you could just turn this right around. Like this could or could just never have happened in the first place.
Yeah, I think he would have been better just probably not saying anything at all, because that's what Nintendo did. What Nintendo came out and they said, well, when it comes out, you'll see why. And then the trailer came out, and everyone was like, "What?" I still don't see why, but they stayed silent on it. But it's fine, People are still, complaining about it. I'm obviously not happy about that either. Obviously, with that price at all either. But as you said, a kind of side thing that they did is like, oh well, if you get the bundle, then technically the game's $50. So it makes it a little bit better. But in general, yeah, it's either be transparent or just keep your mouth shut, and things would have went way better for you.
I think Borderlands 4 comes out at $70.
From all this backlash,
I think there's too
Could be.
much. I don't think he has the balls. And not my call. He's the CEO of Gearbox. He's got to say.
I mean, as I said on my podcast, like, he has sway. Like,
Of course.
he could really push for $70. And whether 2K pushes back or not, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like, as long as he's making the effort and he's listening to people, that's all. I think that's all that's all what really most gamers want is to be heard. And I mean, obviously, there's going to be people who are a bit more forceful about it, but I think the majority of people are being pretty conscious about the fact that he's still a human and whatever.
Right. And I will probably reluctantly pick it up at $80.
Yeah.
And get divorced.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not many games that I have tattoos of, but I do have the Vault symbol tattooed on
I
me.
love that. I love that.
It's like, am I not a real fan? Like, would you say I'm not a real fan, even though I've bought every game, have a freaking tattoo on my arm? But I kind of like wince at the thought of doing an $80 price tag for the game. Like, come on.
But no, like to add on to what Yemmy said, like Halo and stuff. I mean, I have the legendary symbol tattooed on my arm. I mean, I'm gonna buy the games regardless, but at the same time, I don't want to pay that much money for them. It's like, just give us back our good, $59.99 games and just keep it that way.
And diverting back to indies, it's something like, even with that AAA game, right? Say it comes out and it's not up to your standards. Well, then you feel like you just got cheated. I spent $80 for this? What the heck? And I think that's a problem with indie games. If they go up in price and you buy it and it's not up to par or not what you thought it was going to be, then you feel cheated. And I think that's where people like us, with content creators, that's why, going back to how when we're reviewing games and stuff like that, it's so important for us to be fair about things, but to be very transparent ourselves about, like, hey, maybe wait for a sale on this one, so that you don't feel that you are going to have others feeling like they are being cheated with this game that you just reviewed or whatever. So I think it all ties in together.
Another thing they need to watch out for too, like with doing that, is say, you get $80 for Borderlands 4, and then it's like a ton of people buy it and it's like horrible to play. Like, prime example, Battlefield 2042. Horrible game when it released. So many people bought that game. I mean, it was like the most pre-sold Battlefield ever. Turned out to be the worst game. Now that they're talking about releasing a new game, people are like, yeah, I'm good. Like, I'm gonna wait. And it's like, that could hurt their next game too if this game tanks.
Yeah, that's the problem with, and then it's like a revolving door here where you have these game companies, if they release a game and they had a high budget and they put it up for a high price and it didn't turn out being very good and the reviews are bad, and then the next game they try to do, it's almost like, you lost the respect and the trust of the audience, and then they're not going to buy up that next game. And then that causes them to be, oh crap, we completely bombed on this one, so we need to make the next game more, or put in microtransactions or something so that we can keep our studio afloat. Otherwise, we're going to have to close our doors, which that's been happening way too often with a lot of indie studios, or not indie, just studios in general, closing their doors because of bad decisions.
Yeah, a lot of good people lost their jobs at WB because of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. One of my favorite games ever is that Shadow of Mordor game for the Lord of the Rings. Yeah. And that whole studio that literally built a whole Nemesis system for WB that they trademarked, gone just in a flash. They're gone. Like, they can never do that again. And for an indie developer, they can be so much more transparent. They obviously like know their budgets better. So like that risk of having a game come out and people being upset is going to be a lot lower. But there's still always that chance that like the wrong, the game comes out and what's that game that came out? Was it last year or so? It was like supposed to be like a giant survival game. It was like the most wishlist game on Steam ever. The day before, the day before. This was supposed to be like a big open world MMO game. Everyone was super excited for this, coming from like a studio that was unknown at the time. It was the most wishlisted game ever on Steam. People were so hyped for it. It came out, sucked. Like, absolutely terrible trash. No one liked it. It was on like the worst games of the year list for multiple reasons. And that studio, they just packed their bags, they refunded everyone and said, peace, we're out. They didn't want to deal with that. I don't know. I mean, I actually don't remember why I brought this up, but that's to say, like, they as an indie studio, because it was like a 5-person group or whatever, they were able to weigh the pros and cons much more easier than a giant conglomerate like WB Games or whatever. So, you know, just kind of splitting up and going their own separate ways was easier than trying to figure out like, oh, well, if we lay off 25% of our workforce and then we, add in microtransactions to this game and make a live service game here. With the indie game scene, it's much easier for them to not only be more transparent, but also like if something does go wrong, they're not like in debt by millions. Like they may have lost some money obviously because, you know, they had to put their game out on Steam or whatever, but still, like, you know, the overhead, as Maz was saying earlier, is not as bad for an indie studio, especially one that is only like maybe 10 people, you know.
Yeah. And when they release a game, so like I think a perfect example, it just sparked in my head is like, you know, when I released my first game, Upjumper, it wasn't that great and it didn't really matter. I just wanted to get something out. That doesn't define me as a developer though, because I am indie and I'm small and it wasn't really noticed. But this next one, if it goes off, it's, you know, that last game isn't going to define me by this next one. This next one, if it goes off and is really successful, as I hope, then, you know, then that's the defining moment for me as a developer. And I think that for a lot of developers, once they make that first successful game, I think that's when it gets tricky. That's when it's like, okay, now you're known, so the next one better be even better or just as big. And if it's not, that's when it's scary for an indie dev. I think it's okay. Like I said, like, if they're not known, then it's like, oh, you can make a bunch of games and maybe they don't do well. Then it's not really a big deal because, you know, you're trying to just get out there. But your first successful one, then it's like, okay, pump the brakes. Now it's getting real.
Yeah, you start to get expectations when your game goes big, which can also put a lot of pressure on a developer for their sequel. Inscription came out 2019 or so. My favorite game of the year. No, 2020. I think it was 2020 actually. 2021? Whatever. It was my favorite game of the year that came out. But that puts a lot of pressure on that person's next game. It's like, well, okay, I'm excited to see what he has to offer. I'm excited to see what they're going to do. But I can't even fathom probably the amount of anxiety I would have from having like 1 million+ people with all their eyes looking at you going, okay, what's this next game gonna be? We're all waiting.
Right?
Yeah, honestly.
No pressure.
Yeah,
Cool.
just to add to that, the day before thing, I just looked it up. It makes you wonder too how much they got in over their head from the start, because they closed down 4 days after releasing the game.
Yeah, it's
Oh
a
my
pretty famous
God.
case, yeah. I
4
forgot
days.
about
It
that.
released on December 7th, 2023, and on December 11th, they announced that they had closed the studio and removed the game from Steam. Like, you're 4 days in. Like, how? I mean, I'm sure, you know, like, you need that money coming in if you got, you know, certain people backing you and stuff, but at the same time, it's like, how much overhead did you end up with that you couldn't make up for in a short amount of time?
I think it was just like they overpromised, under-delivered, and then also lied about a lot of things. And so instead of facing the backlash head on, they were like, yeah, I guess we'll just go into obscurity.
Yeah.
You hate to
I feel
see
like
that.
I would have just like, I feel like I would have just dug down and, you know, like, how can we make this better, and took off with it.
It goes back to a conversation that we had a couple of podcasts ago. It's like, how do you deal with things like this? Some companies roll up their sleeves and get it. I think it was one of the questions of the pod. You roll up your sleeves and get to work, or do you just fold like a deck of cards? And, you know, it's for 4 days, you just be like, oh, you know what? Screw you guys. Here's your money back. Bye. I mean, how much work went into that? I mean, it's just, I understand that there's the financial implications that it's, you know, to fix it, it's going to cost them an arm and a leg, but they had the money to fix it, especially with all of those sales. It would have been great to have them just be, especially if it was so anticipated, and it could be great. Say, hey, you know what? This is a list of the promises we made that we didn't keep. Let's take this money now that we're funded because we sold, you know, 11 bajillion copies of this, and make it right. It's frustrating to see these indie developers just fold like that.
I think it was kind of what Yami was saying too. Yeah, absolutely. It was, they folded under pressure. It was probably the expectation just grew more and more and more. and they're like, oh, just send it, it'll be fine, and it wasn't fine. And instead of
Yeah.
doing that, overcoming it, they're just no, I'm good. And a perfect example is the game I mentioned earlier, Pixelshire. It's got mostly negative reviews on it on Steam because of what they did and everything, where they just released the game mostly out of pressure, probably from their publisher. And this is just an assumption; it's not for sure the reason why, but they actually went out to their everyone who bought the game, and they're like, hey, apologies for this, and we're going to add this, and we're going to patch that, and we're still working on the game. We're going to make sure that it is what you guys expected. So they didn't just fold and said, yeah, you know what, it is what it is, take it or leave it. They actually were like, okay, no, we need to right the wrong. So there are any developers that do stick around and like, okay, even though it's almost like crawling out of a deep hole for them right now with mostly negative reviews. As we've said, for indie devs, it's very important to have, one, a lot of wish lists before your game launches, and two, the reviews. That mostly negative review mark on their game is going to haunt them. But really cool to see that they're still trying.
Yeah, I think that indie studio that takes the time, rolls up their sleeves, gets to work when something goes wrong, have way more respect at the end of the day in the community than, the group of 5 college students who, well, not college students, but 5 bros who were like, yeah, let's make a game, and let's put this out, and then they completely dump it after a couple days. There's so much more respect, especially for I know it's brought up a lot, but No Man's Sky, that game started in such a different place than where it is now, and there's people in the area of their offices who put up posters that are like, thank you for fixing the game, and they spread their love with No Man's Sky now. I mean, Maz is like No Man's Sky fan #1, and I don't know if it started that way, but I think for a lot of people, you got that game in your hands and you said, well, this isn't what I was promised.
Well,
right.
And now, however many years later, you can confidently say, like, yes, this was what I was promised and more.
So you were a day one guy with No
Mia.
Man's Sky. I was, and I went against the grain on this. I don't pay attention to reviews in terms of like movie reviews, game reviews. Oh, this game was terrible, blah, blah, blah. You know what? That's great. That's one person's opinion. And it might be, the before you buy guy, whatever, it's based off of that one person's opinion. You have to play the games yourself to really form that right opinion. But I didn't. I went against the grain on that one. And people were like, because I heard it one after another, oh, this game is terrible. It's empty. It's nothing like they said it was going to be. And they were talking big about it for years before it came out, if you remember. And so a buddy of mine, he's like, you got to try it. And I'm like, well, it's like an empty game. Like, no. That's when they released, in 2017 timeframe when they're starting to pump out these updates. And so I was late to the party. I didn't play it when it was empty, and I think I'm glad I did that because I was there for the beta of 76, and I have a bad taste in my mouth about that still, even though they've made big strides. It's not where it should be still, but when I got into, I think I probably would be more tolerant of 76 had I got into it late, like I did with No Man's Sky. I mean, I'm here for it with No Man's Sky. I think it's absolutely amazing, and it's everything that I thought I was promised when it came out because I missed what wasn't promised, right? Well, what was promised but wasn't there.
I think that kind of ties back into like what we said earlier about like content creators and stuff just being reasonable with their opinions. Like, if you really enjoy a game but it isn't the best, like, don't just trash it, like, give it a chance.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's easier now more than ever to like give something a chance, especially on Steam, because of their return policy is like 2 weeks, 2 hours played. Like, I can't tell you how many games I've bought, whether it be on sale or not, and I just was like, well, I'll try it out, see if I like it or not. And it's like, well, if I'm not vibing with it, like, I feel bad, but it's like, well, I could spend this on a game that clicks with me. So I think that's also a good thing too right now. Maybe not a good thing for indie developers because then they lose money, but it is what it is.
Yeah, you're not, well, it is nature of the beast. You're not going to please everyone. And it's just like, if I'm really into RPGs, doesn't mean Maz is going to be really into RPGs. Something that I really enjoy doesn't mean, and I'm going to review, like, say I make a video on reviewing all the indie games that I've gone over and played, and I rank a couple games that are RPGs as S tier, and Maz does one and they're, B tier. It doesn't make the game any less valuable. It just means that he has a different play style than me, and that's okay, and that's normal.
Yeah, we all experience video games differently, and that's something that I think a lot of people forget, especially when something goes big. not everyone is going to be, saying like, oh, Balatro is a 5 out of 5. Like, there's going to be people out there who are like, I don't get it. I don't like it. And then they give it like a 1 or a 2. Like, there's going to be those people out there. And, it's just weaving, like, I think as a content creator, you kind of want to put your own opinion out there every time, but it's hard not to think about like, well, Doom, the Dark Ages, it's like really, like, I really love it, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, there's also like a group of people who are like, no, this is like bad. It's like, well, should I like try to explain to them why it's not bad, or should I just stick to what I what I'm talking about and not worry about them? And a lot of times I just don't worry about them. Like, I'll talk about a game and I'll gush over it for hours, and I won't even mention like, oh well, there was like this one person who was on Twitter and they said that they didn't like this game, and that really rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, well, it doesn't really matter to me because it's my experience, it's not theirs.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and get into our poll. All right. So over on X and in our Discord, we threw a poll at you guys. And the question was, what genre of games are you most excited for in the Steam Next Fest event? Your options were RPGs, multiplayer games, roguelite, or likes, or your last option was other. And to comment below. And when I tally up the votes over on X and Discord combined, RPGs was the winner, I should say. RPGs. What do you guys, what did you vote for as?
Actually went with other.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm a diehard RPG fan. I love RPGs. I'm looking forward to RPGs. I'm looking forward to roguelites. I'm looking forward to roguelikes. I'm looking forward to platformers. I'm looking forward to story-driven games. Where I am right now, Headspace, not as a content creator, but overall, because we have our interests as content creators, but what happens with that is it's based on our interests as gamers as well when we're talking about being a gaming content creator. Getting into this indie space, as I had mentioned earlier, going from AAA games, it's really sparked my interest in all genres of indie games at this point. And so with Next Fest being here, I mean, this is like a content overload for me. Not as a content creator, as a consumer. It's hard to see where to start, and it's impossible to get to every demo. And we don't really know what demos are going to be there at the end of Next Fest versus the ones that are going to stick around. I think that most of them will stick around. Some of them are up specifically for Next Fest, but I went with other, and I didn't comment on it because, I have the amazing privilege of being one of the co-hosts here where I can actually voice other.
Yeah, I like it. I voted for RPGs, believe it or not. Wow,
Whoa.
surprise. I know, right?
You don't say.
You never would have guessed. Yeah, I am excited for all the RPGs that are coming out. And like I said, getting into a lot of the pixel art style games that really, really call to me. So yeah, that's the one I picked. How about you, Yemmy?
Well, you might want to beep this, but I picked the wrong option. I said RPGs, but in all honesty, I should have gone with other, because I like so many different genres. Like, just looking at the list of Next Fest games, like there's so many games where I'm like, oh, it's a racing game, I could check that out. Oh, that's a survival game, oh, I could probably check that out. So I mean, I'm also like mostly looking for the wacky and weird ones, because those are the ones that usually click with me the most. So I think, like, even though I did choose RPGs, in my heart it's other, because I much like what Matt said, I mean, I'm looking at every genre, I'm looking at everything in there. And I could go for a racing game some days, or some days I'll go for indie like I don't know, platformer or something like that. Like, I'm just looking for anything that piques my interest, looks unique, and maybe is a cool mashup of like two different genres.
Nice, I like it. I like it.
Genre
What about you,
fusion
Kronos?
right there.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, just sticking to my normal self, I picked multiplayer because I'm always looking for that next game that I can just jump in with my friends and have fun and just spend hours laughing, or maybe, breaking down and finally finding a serious game and actually grinding through it with some friends or stuff. I like the multiplayer aspects of games because it's just, you get that person to talk to and interact with and just have fun discovering stuff and everything.
Nice. Yeah, good stuff, man. So and by the way, multiplayer was in second place there. Well, technically other, if Yemmy's changing his tone here. So no, but yeah, so then multiplayer and other were tied. But yeah, no, good stuff. I like it. A lot of fun stuff coming our way when it comes to Steam Next Fest. If you didn't get in on the X poll or in on the Discord poll, I really think our listeners should. It would be awesome. Get in on the conversation with us if you want to get in on the poll, be sure to join our Discord, the Indie Hangout Discord, which is going to be linked in the About section where you find this podcast. Or if you want to go and follow us over on X, you'll find us at Indie_Hangout over there. All right. Last segment of the night, fellas. The best, one of the best for last here. The mailbag.
Kronos.
Mailbag.
Awesome. So over in our mailbag, over on Discord, we have a question from our very own guest, Mr. Yemmy.
Really?
He asked, "What do you want to sound off on this, Yemmy? What was your question?"
Do I need to sing it?
If
No, you
want
don't need
to,
it. No.
No, you're good.
You're good.
I would like him to sing it.
Yeah. Well, Maz is vouching for this. Yes.
So my question was, can you judge the quality of a game by how detailed the sandwiches are?
Well, that was good.
That was good.
Wow.
That was
Bravo.
crisp.
Woo. So
And I know you all had a lot of like head scratching moments when I asked this question, but there is actually a trend in gaming where a trailer comes out or a game comes out and the sandwiches or the food in general just looks so freaking good that you just want to eat it, right? One of those games that I mentioned in the section was like, Concord, when that trailer came out, they had such a detailed sandwich in that spaceship. I was ready to reach into my freaking monitoring and just grab that thing and eat it, because like, how do you get so detailed on the sandwich? Like, oh my gosh, like it's like steaming. It's got all this like alien meat on it, but it looks so good. And that begs the question, like, can we judge the quality of a game by how detailed the food is? Because obviously we know what happened with Concord. 2 weeks later, that sandwich was put into the freezer and never opened up again.
They spent too much time on the sandwich. They forgot about the rest of the game.
Right, yeah. They put all their resources into that one sandwich.
Right. And that's a hard question for me to answer, and it's all opinion based, right? But I am such a graphics nut and I don't judge a book by its cover, but I tend to stray away from games that don't look good to me. And so I hold on to, you don't judge a book by its cover, but it might attract me to a game to find out it belongs in the freezer, right? And short answer, no. You cannot judge a game by how good the graphics of food looks. But I would say that it's definitely a great way to attract people to a game that are attracted by graphics, to at least give it a shot, if that makes sense. That even answers the question. I mean, the answer is no, but it could definitely give people more of an opportunity, or give that developer an opportunity to be seen or tried more, because it's so good looking.
Yeah, I guess there's a segue here. Is like, okay, like it's a silly question. Honestly,
Right,
it's a silly
right.
question. But I think we can segue into like, okay, well, what's some video game food that looks so good that you could just reach into your monitor and eat it? Because I think we all, I would hope that we all have played the Resident Evil 2 remake, and the detail on that freaking burger that the truck driver is eating in the opening scene is like it's a burger. Like, how is it so detailed? Oh my goodness.
It's very true. It's very, very true.
it's funny when I saw this question, I actually told these guys too. I go, I think it has something to do with a meme. I'm pretty sure it's something about. I swear to God, I've seen this meme about the food just being like ridiculous. Like you judge the game based off the detail of the food or some crap like that. So that's how I took it. And well, listen, yeah. And also, yes, definitely silly question. It also is kind of an important one to throw out there, because as Maz said, it can attract people to the game, but it also brings up a good point. When I was in college, I had a professor, and I've stated this in a past podcast episode, where he said, you can have an amazing game and a great looking game, the best out there, but if it plays like shit, it plays like shit, and that's it. And so with that, it's kind of like, to the point of, you can spend too much time trying to make it pretty, but that doesn't mask the fact that it doesn't play well. Or on a double-edged sword here, you could have so much detail in the game. Like I have Cog, one of my subscribers over on YouTube, he pointed out in a game, I don't remember what it was, if it was like, well, I think it was Realm Royale, funny enough, when that game was still up and about before it got killed off. He's looking at the ground and he goes, dude, look at this. Come here, look at this. I'm like, what are you looking at? What? And I come over and I look down, and it's like these little ants crawling around on a flower. He goes, they didn't have to put this in here, but they did. That says something, man. Okay, I guess, but probably not the best example since the game's not around
But it's
anymore.
attention to detail.
But it is, yeah, and I love that game. It was a matter of like you said, attention to detail. They paid attention to detail when it came to, for me, the gameplay. I thought it was great, and to the design and art of the game. So you never know what you're gonna get sometimes.
Right. And the downfall of Realm Royale was its timing.
Yeah,
Going off of like you saying, like the question kind of sounds like a meme. There actually was a bit of a meme when Sonic Unleashed originally came out. Randomly, Dr. Eggman is holding the most detailed sandwich you would ever see in a Sonic game ever. And it's a pretty quick scene, but it's like it just stands out because it's like all of a sudden you have this highly detailed sub sandwich that he's just holding on to, and he's like, it's like in this random Sonic game that I don't even think is rated that highly. It's like all of a sudden, like, looks like a good sub. I could eat that.
Nice.
There's also like a bunch of fun like food Easter eggs in games. Like there's a giant sandwich Easter egg in Halo Infinite. There's the giant donut in Aliens Colonial Marines. Obviously two very different games in terms of quality wise, but it's always funny to have like a dev throw like a giant food item or even like a food weapon into games. That just, it always warms my heart to see like a really fun weapon made out of food.
I was sitting here thinking of the Halo Infinite sandwich weapon because I was like, I like how they done it because they didn't make it try to look real. They made it look like the developer that did it. He says like, we made it look like a dog toy.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was the whole thing behind it. It's like they wanted it to be in the game to add that humor to it, but they were like, we're going to make it a dog toy. Like it's going to look rubbery.
Jeez.
But to add to the subject of can, like, I guess food in general make a game better in a way, like quality of game, the second Modern Warfare, the current Modern Warfares, there's a market that you go through in the food. Like there's like pumpkins and other types of fruits and vegetables for sale, and they are so detailed, and you can actually walk up and like shoot each individual one of them, and they splatter, and like you can see parts of the outer layers and the inners, and it's like they went into a lot of detail on just this one little food market, and the rest of the game kind of showed that one because that game had a lot of good details in it, and it played rather smoothly.
You know for a fact that was the art director coming over. I'm like, hey, man, hey, over to the code guy, and he's like, hey, I got this cool idea. What if we made really realistic food and you could shoot it and it like just blows up, like as if in real life, like you're a little kid out and back and you shooting that stuff, and you're like, oh, what happens when I shoot this pumpkin? And the code guy's probably like, yeah, sure, whatever, I'll throw it in.
But like, it's little things like that that can make a game, really good.
Yeah. That, like I said, yeah, like I think we all agreement with that for the attention to detail.
I'd be amiss if I didn't mention bug snacks in terms of like food. Those little snack creatures, especially like a bunger or whatever. Like I know that they're like. Have you all played bug snacks? I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
I have not.
Okay, I'm not going to spoil
I
anything.
haven't.
But no matter what, I would probably take a big bite out of bunger, and I would also suggest everyone here play bug snacks. It's an amazing, almost Pokemon-like experience where you're capturing little creatures that look like food. Like there's one called a Frider that's like a spider, but he has French fry legs and like a French fry cup as a body. And Bunger, he's a burger that has curly fries for legs and tusks. And there's a bunch of just like fun little creatures. You collect them all, and then yeah, I would totally take a huge bite out of several creatures in that game.
No, that's good. It's 10 out of 10 on Steam. Really good reviews. Yeah. I like it. Hell yeah. Cool. Well, that's pretty much it, guys. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining in with us and listening to us. Like I said, if you would like to join the Discord, feel free. It's in the About section wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us over on X at indie_hangouts. Or if you want to email us some questions, feel free to as well at indiehangoutcast@gmail.com. Anyways, thank you so much, Yemmy, for joining us on the podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you on here. I am looking forward to future episodes of your podcasts as well. I think everyone should join in on those because you have a lot of good information to share with people. But I'm very happy for you to bring that information over with us.
I appreciate the invite. I'll come back anytime. This was so much fun.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
blast. Real quick, Yemmy, just list off your 3 podcasts one more time for everybody.
My main one is Ferret64. It's available everywhere in video and audio form. The video is something new that I recently started doing like halfway through last year, and the visual element has been fun to do. But that's my video game podcast. Talk about all things video games, news, what I've been playing, show off my collection a little bit as well. The other podcast I do is Film Freaks with a Z at the end. We talk about movies. Me and a group of friends. We talk about some movies. The most recent episode as of this podcast coming out is for the movie Triple X XXX with Vin Diesel, which was a fun conversation. And then the last podcast I do that I recently revived is Fubar Ferret, which is just my BS podcast. I just talk about random things. I tend to talk about this podcast as remember that scene from the Joker movie where he's on stage and he's like making jokes and laughing at his own jokes. That's kind of what that podcast is. I'm on stage and I'm laughing at all my own jokes. So that one's also available on audio platforms as well. So.
Cool. Awesome. Good to hear it. All right, everyone. Thank you again for joining in with us. Feel free, like I said, to join in on the conversation with us on anywhere you can find us. And we will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.
That's a wrap.
See you later.
Auf Wiedersehen.